Welcome to Season 5 of How I Made It Through, and thank you for joining us. I have invited Ray Catania, author, metaphysical teacher, and coach, to join me as my co-host as we aim to engage, challenge, inspire, and teach you, our listeners, what it really means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. We'll explore not just concepts, but attempt to unravel the neuroscience of metaphysics, as well as practices designed to expand consciousness, increase healing, and develop a profound connection to love. We'll explore God, death, the afterlife, and pushing past limitations as we encourage you to break free of the trance of fear so that you may experience greater freedom, peace, and connection to yourselves, each other, and spirit. Veronica Drake is the founder of the School of Spiritual Arts and a highly respected intuitive mentor with nearly 2 decades of experience guiding midlife women toward reigniting their creativity, reconnecting with their intuition, and realigning with their purpose. Known for her compassionate and insightful approach, Veronica blends practical wisdom with spiritual depth, helping her clients unlock their potential and embrace their unique paths. With a metaphysical degree in spiritual counseling and professional training as a spiritual life coach, Veronica brings a wealth of knowledge to her work. Her free offering, a personal assessment, which I believe we have the link for, a journey to discovering your guiding element, empowers women to explore their connection to the elements, air, fire, water, or earth, providing them with valuable insights into how they navigate life and embrace their authentic selves. Through her heartfelt teaching and intuitive guidance, Veronica is dedicated to transforming the lives of 500,000 women, helping them to find deeper purpose and fulfillment through her work. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I will start by saying I am so excited to have you here. I did not know that we had a mutual connection through Bernadette Thompson. I was like, you know, Veronica Drake. And the reason you were so top of mind for me in terms of my awareness of the industry is because you are often on the YouTube channel, channeling Erik, which is just an extraordinary podcast YouTube channel where uh, Elisa Medhus,
Mhm.
did I say her name correctly?
Yep, yep,
She
absolutely.
lost her dear son years ago now. He was late teens, early 20s?
20.
20. Okay. I say was, but he is because you and other spectacular intuitives channel him, and he has such an advanced soul and so much to teach humanity. And it's just a really moving experience. So I learned of you because I was telling Ray, you really touched me with your vulnerability and your honesty and your intuitive gifts. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
kind of you. Thank you.
Well, it's true. So I always like to start with the beginning. When did you start to know that you had this extrasensory ability? And can you share a little bit more about your origin story?
Sure. I did not grow up with any kind of spirituality or any kind of religion. I grew up in survival mode. It was alcoholism and mental illness. And what I know now, I'm very grateful for that because I believe the early days of being a very creative, imaginative child allowed me to receive information from places other than this 3D world. I didn't know it and I wouldn't have known how to label it, but I've always heard voices. And there's a line, let's be clear, there's a line when you're hearing voices, but I've always heard voices and I've always had insight and I've always had for me it's been just gut knowing, a gut feeling like, oh, that just doesn't feel right. So I would say always professionally, I came out, so to speak, in 2007, I want to say. It was as a spiritual life coach. I began doing card readings for people, oracle cards, angel cards. So, really, that was when I started coming out of the closet.
Was there an event?
Mhm.
Because, I mean, especially in 2007, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was long enough ago where this industry is becoming daily more receptive. The world, the
Oh,
collective
yeah.
at large is more receptive. But in 2007, it's a risky, vulnerable endeavor to say, okay, I'm moving in this direction. Were there accumulation of events which had you say, yes, I need to embrace this? Or is there more you can say about that?
Sure. Well, in 1996, let me back up to that. I had a spiritual encounter of an angelic kind. I went to take my life. I felt like I didn't want to live anymore. I'd made some really bad choices. I was not such a good person by my own account, and seriously, by other people's account. I um, didn't want to live. And so I went to take my life by crashing my car into the side of a bridge abutment, and my car filled up in November of '96 with this amazing warmth. I felt like there was no room for me in the car. That's how full it got. And, I heard, "We've got you. You're not going anywhere." And my foot was
Oh,
pulled off the accelerator, and I was like, "What was that?" Because again, nothing to reference it. So that really started me exploring, reading books. In the '90s, that's what you did. You read books, right?
Hmm.
Um, I worked at the time, fast forward to the 2000s, early 2000s, I worked in nonprofit, and our, director had brought in a life coach. Well, I got to know her personally, and she was a spiritual life coach. This was probably in 2004. Pretty much unheard of. Life coaching itself was new, but spiritual life
mhm.
coaching, what does that mean,
Hmm.
and so I began to be curious about what she did and what she was about and what all of this meant. And I do what I do best. I am an explorer. I research. And so I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. And so I became a life coach. People have always been drawn to me. I worked in dentistry prior to nonprofit. And I was the office manager and the financial coordinator, the finance person you think everybody wants to avoid. Uh, I would find people coming in 30, 40 minutes earlier for their appointment just to sit and talk with me about their life. Nobody comes
Mm,
early to an appointment because you're always waiting in the dental office.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had something, that I was wired with something. But when they would sit in front of me, I would begin to see their story. I would know.
Mm.
And it wasn't like, "Oh, I have your answer for you." I would be given this insight so that I could ask questions that they could go,
yeah,
"Ah, I see it." So, that was really the beginning.
Interesting. And how over time, and it's been quite a while, would you say you've really honed your skill? What are some of the practices and
Mhm.
where are you now in terms of your
Well,
skill development versus where you were in 2004?
I love that question, and this is gonna sound terrible when I answer it like this, but it's like the fish in the water. The fish doesn't know that it's in the water, right? I never knew anything differently than, "Oh, I just know things." There was never anybody to tell me, "Don't do that," because quite frankly, and I don't have issue, or I'm not telling a narrative that, "Oh, poor me." Nobody paid attention to me.
Yeah.
I was like, "Be who you want, do what you want, say what you want," and I'm very outspoken, and so it came naturally to me. It wasn't until somebody said to me, "Well, how do you do this?"
Yeah.
Like, "What how do you what?" And I was like, What do you mean, how do I do this?" Like, "You wake up, you live life." And then it's like, "All right, well, really, how do you do this?" And I would say the number one thing that that really was the best thing I could have given myself was self-awareness. Knowing who I was, knowing what mattered to me, knowing what I valued, knowing my little the little clicks that I have inside of me and my behaviors and my responses, that helped me to discern what isn't coming from me. So I would
Mm.
say anybody that wants to develop this, to grow it, start with self-development. Start by knowing yourself. And it's already in there. We're born with this. You didn't get missed. Like, trust me, you did not get missed with this. This is hardwired. This is manufacturer's setting. So everybody has this.
I like how you say that. This is manufacturer setting. You just have to find, like, with the self-awareness and other tools, how to flip
Totally.
the switch.
It's like when your phone doesn't work, what do? You turn it off and you turn it back on. So when you're not receiving, when you're feeling frazzled, when your lines are disconnected,
Yeah.
I go literally sit in a forest. I take my shoes off. I walk in the garden. I touch the soil. Get yourself back to your natural state.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
I could spend hours and I remember, when I first started to learn things myself, one of my birthdays was coming up. My wife says, "So what do you want to do for your birthday? You want to go to like Bahamas? You want to go here or there?" I said, "I want to go in the middle of nowhere and just have a bunch of trees around me. We could have a tent and an outhouse for all I care. I just want the trees."
Mm.
And I have no idea why. I just want the trees.
Well, and the most profound experience I ever had was not sitting on the mountaintop oming and awing. It was going to a forest and sitting in the middle of it and just being in awe of what quiet sounds like.
Yeah.
Like, quiet has a sound. It's like, I think this hurts my ears at first. It was like, there's nothing. And then it began to be a quest of mine that I sought out when I wasn't in the forest. How do I find that stillness inside of me? People attach words to things and people freak out over the word meditation. Oh, I can't meditate. I can't. I can't. Listen, if you say to me, can you meditate? I'll be like, no, my mind goes a million miles a minute. I can't meditate, but I can find stillness.
Mm.
It's a matter of verbiage, I think.
I think you're so right. That's why, as much as it's can feel overplayed these days, mindfulness is so much more accessible because it's just that present moment awareness
Right.
versus, oh my gosh, I have to sit in the lotus position for an hour and I can't even do it for 20 seconds kind of thing, you know? But that's the true, like when I was a little girl, there was a lot of violence in my home, and I lived in California, Northern California, and I would run out even at night into the redwood trees and just lie underneath the trees. It's like an intuitive, you just know what you need. And there I felt safety and connected and quiet. And
Yeah.
quiet,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we live in such a busy world. That's the other thing. I liken intuition to imagine you and I being in a room. We're at a party and you're on the other side of the party. I'm over here. There's 100 people between us, and I want to leave. And I want to tell you, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to leave. And you're going, what? What? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Now we take away 50 of those people and I'm saying, "I want to leave." You're getting like, "Oh, you want what do you want? You wanna do something." And then we take away 25 more, and then I say, "I wanna leave." Now you can hear me. That's what happens between us and our intuition. We've got all of this noise between us, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's this thing or whether it's our emails or whether it's, did I let the cat out? Is the iron on? Like, whatever. We
Mhm.
don't have saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore. We have cell phones and text messages
Yep.
and all of that.
Mhm.
I spoke earlier about my vacation. I took off for 3 weeks. I didn't realize how close to the edge I was, how I wasn't doing my practices.
Mm.
I didn't realize what it was doing to my body until now I'm on the other side
Mm.
of it, and I can see
Yeah.
it. Now I've got awareness around it so as to not let that happen again, but
Right.
Mm.
We
yeah,
almost get numb and inured to it. It's so part of the air we breathe or, we don't know that we're, in water if we're a fish.
absolutely.
Really wanna get to the work that you do with women, but I'm so curious, and again, because my access point to you is channeling Erik, and again, I don't think I said this, he took his life, and now from the other side, he has so much wisdom.
Mm.
This I love what you're saying about you're across the room in a crowded party, I wanna leave, too much noise. How do you receive him? Do you hear his voice? Do you see him? How did you first meet him? And I'm just so fascinated by it.
Well, he's definitely a character, I'll give you that.
I
Um,
get it.
and when I went to interview, I didn't know I was interviewing. I talked to mama, Elisa, and I didn't know what channeling Eric was. I was like, I don't even know what this is. And so one of my clients said, "You gotta meet Elisa Medhus." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right, whatever, hook me up. I don't know." And so I met her and she turned on Skype. That's how long ago it was. We were Skyping, right? And she started asking me questions. I'm like, we're going through a thing. And she says to me, "Okay, well, can you bring in my son?" Now, I'm going to tell you honestly, I did not know who Eric was. I did no research because I didn't have any I didn't have an agenda, right?
Yeah.
It's me, right? So she says, "Can you bring in my son?" And I said, "Well, I'm a really good intuitive psychic. I'm great, in fact." And she said, "Well, what about mediumship?" And I was like, "I don't know, we'll see." Right? So I sat there and I brought her son in and I started giving these examples of, this and that and things I wouldn't have known. I thought we were having a conversation. And I said to my husband, "Well, I must have blown that because it was 3 weeks past. I didn't hear anything. She didn't get back to me. She must not want me to do her show." So then I keep getting these little nudges of "You're on, you're on, you're on." Like this was, and I would always smell with Eric, his feet smell like Fritos. And she confirmed that. She
I
confirmed
remember hearing you say that. Yeah. Oh my
he always
god.
had stinky feet, right? So I would always smell these Fritos. I'm like, "What's Fritos? Okay, all right, Eric. All right, Eric."
Gross.
So 3 weeks goes by, the mom sends me an email and she says, "Okay, you're up next in the queue. Your videos." I What do you mean I'm in the queue? What queue?
A little
Well,
heads up.
I know. Listen, I'm on there like my hair's all over the place. I mean, I thought it was a conversation between me and mama, right? She
No.
posted my video in the queue. Literally that week, I had 75 readings in my inbox. And I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm a medium."
Oh my gosh. But so you're having this conversation. So she's like, "Can you bring Eric
Yeah.
through?" And then are you hearing his voice? Are you seeing him? Like, how is this coming through you? What clair are you using is what I'm
So
asking.
so here's the best example I can give. If I tell you, just picture in your mind's eye what an apple looks like. You're gonna start to see an apple. You're gonna see it's red, and you're gonna see maybe it has a bruise on it, and so when she said Eric, I was like, "Okay, Eric." So in my mind's eye, I was building this person that I
And you'd
didn't know.
never seen a picture of him.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know he killed himself. I didn't know she was a doctor. I knew nothing about it.
That's perfect, actually.
Well, yeah,
It is,
I
yeah.
loved going in like that because I didn't have any fear. I didn't it was just like, I got nothing riding on this. We'll see what happens. Um, but yeah, so when he comes into me now, he always comes on my right side. He smells like Fritos. I still get that smell. But now it's like I don't he's not here at this moment, but when he is here, it feels like how when somebody stands too close to you and they're in your personal space? I get
Mhm.
that feeling from him.
Interesting.
Yep, I get that feeling from him. And there was a time when I was gonna stop doing the show, and I was on a cruise, and we were in the Bahamas or I don't know, wherever we were. And I said, "Eric, listen, dude, I've done my run. I'm done," and I got this gnawing like, "No, you're not. No, you're not." And I going back and forth with him. I said, "Okay, listen, I need a clear sign here. If I'm going to keep doing this show, you need to really step up your game, right?" I said, "I want to see a school of dolphins right now within, this time frame." And we hadn't seen any dolphins. So I thought, well, I'm making the impossible happen here, right? We were on this cruise for 9 days. We hadn't seen any. I look out my stateroom. I'm sitting on the balcony with my coffee, and lo and behold, here comes a massive school of dolphins. I'm like, "All right,
I got
buddy. All
chills.
right, buddy. I'm not going anywhere."
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. So, I
Things like that, that there's just no denying
Oh,
anymore that,
yes.
it's up in the air, you go through those times, and I'm sure you did too, V, right? Where you went through those times of, self-doubt, "Is this real? Is this not?" But then when you see something like that, you're just like,
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
no
And,
there's no
going
question.
back to when I was a kid, I didn't know it was intuition, but I would say, "Okay, I've got a test tomorrow. I'm really nervous." And my grandmother lived in this very rural place, and we were raised there, and there weren't a lot of cars, right? Like, you'd go to bed at night and maybe you'd hear a car or 2. I said, "All right, if I'm gonna pass this test tomorrow, I wanna hear 3 cars go by in a row, like, and distinctly, 1, 2, 3." And I'd lay in bed and I'd sit there and, if I don't hear any cars, I'm not gonna pass, right? And inevitably, I would hear 1 car, 2 car, 3 car. I would do the whole stoplight thing, is, "Okay, the light's gonna turn green now." I would do the elevator thing. Like, I still do it. I did it when we were at the beach. I'm like, "Okay, I know what." My husband's like, "God, you're freaky. How do you know to stand?" There were 4 elevators. "How do you know which elevator to stand in front of?" It's that innate in us.
Wow. Wow. There's something else that I listened to you
Did
on
you?
one of her shows where you talked about colors, different
Mhm.
colors, like energetic colors. And I know that, they're auras, but I feel like you described it differently. It's been a while since I listened to it. It was fascinating, though. Do you know what I'm talking about? And if so, can you say a little bit more?
I'm not sure I remember the exact, issue or episode that you're talking about, but I do know that obviously we do have auras, we do
Hmm.
emanate, there is color, but I do believe that they are connected to our chakras also. For instance, I'll give you an example. What I now learned is when I meet somebody and I'm working with them, I know because it was given to me, the lower 3 chakras, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus
Hmm.
carry our life purpose. And so when we work through those 3 areas, and typically when I meet somebody, I will see a color and it will be accompanied by a lower color. So I'll see a higher color like the heart, the throat, the like those colors, and then it'll be surrounded by a lower color.
Oh, it's
And so
fascinating.
and then I begin my intuitive work with, okay, so here's Sally. Sally's showing up. She's got a blue. I can see blue with Sally, but that blue is being hugged by an orange, right? And so, all right, Sally, now we're in your sacral. Sally,
Hmm.
what aren't you expressing about the relation? Like it becomes that kind of intuitive dialogue for me.
Right. Do you see it like, and I'm always wary. I don't want to put people on the spot. Like, I'm not going to ask you to channel or anything. But, like, as we're sitting here, do you see Ray's or mine, or is it part of that, or is it something you have to get into a state to see?
So I wouldn't say I have to get into a state. It has to be setting the awareness and the intention to do it.
Mhm.
So
Makes
for
sense.
instance, when I look at Ray, because we're doing it intentionally, the first layer I see is a green layer, and that's the heart layer, right?
Ah,
And then I see a combination. This is like a burnt orange. So now I'm going to go, well, we got some root and we got some sacral here. So, what's happening with the heart, the root, and the sacral? What kind of conversation do they need to have or did they have to heal? And then the work gets really deep from there.
yeah.
But
Fascinating.
yeah, we were just out somewhere, well, on vacation, meeting people, and I'm very conversational, but I'm an introvert, right?
Mhm.
I get peopled out very quickly.
Yeah.
My human design also is like I need to back away. I need to be a recluse. I go into the hermit like the tarot card. I need that.
Mhm.
Um, but because I can see people's stories, like they'll walk by me and I'll be like, "Up, there goes. Boy, she's abused. Oh,
Oh,
goodness." I-
wow.
And I don't, it's not like, do you turn it off? Do you turn it on? Because it's just happening in me. Again, whether I choose to turn my awareness to it is what
Interesting.
is key. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's pivot to this work you're doing with women with the School of Spiritual Arts. Someone signs up. Who are you wanting to sign up? What are some of the things that they can expect? Share a little bit more.
So I love spiritually curious women. She's midlife. She's been around the block. She knows there's more than her 5 senses, but do I trust it? Can I go deeper with it?
Yeah.
She's committed to self-development. She's in a place where she's financially stable. She doesn't have to break the bank, but she knows that she can afford to take care of herself emotionally, financially, physically. She's curious. She's an explorer. And she's been looking for a community. And there are 3 areas that I don't know if we'd call it a struggle, but she longs to reignite her creativity.
Mm.
She wants to get the crayons out and color outside the line, but she goes, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this," because I'm an artist also, so
Mm.
I bring that to it. She knows she's intuitive. She's been down YouTube rabbit holes, and she knows what intuition is, but she's like, Where's my connection? Why do I drop it? Why, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" And then she just wants to realign with why she's here.
Yeah.
She knows she's here for a bigger purpose, but what is it? When I do readings, that's the number one question I get. Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I don't have a standard canned answer for that. And it's not what everyone else is telling you. So, yeah, so that's part of what we teach in this school.
Ah, it's beautiful. I mean, you spoke to me. I can imagine you're speaking to a lot of people when you share that. And then is it a certain length of time or a series
Mhm.
of workshops, or can you lay out a little bit of the framework?
Sure. I built a faculty, so I have teachers from around the globe, actually. We're teaching things like the Enneagram. We're teaching the human design. I've got astrologers. I've got a practitioner expert in epigenetics. And my framework is creativity, intuition, and purpose. And so the
Mm.
underlying is I'm filling in the blanks, teaching all of that. Um, I ideally would love for her to stay with us for at least a year because you have to get traction, but there's
Mhm.
nothing holding you there. You can join monthly or you can pay by the year. Um, and so my goal to reach 500,000 women is because of this. And I offer a free series of workshops called Evolve. If we're going to change the world, because politicians aren't going to change the world, amending gun laws and mental health isn't going to change the world, right? That's not the answer. Don't hide the guns. Don't put the person away. What's going to change the world is how we each go inside and reflect of how we are all part of the whole,
Mm,
right? And we can't do that until we understand our worth, our value, and our divinity. And
Mm.
I believe I don't know if you 2 are old enough to remember, there was a Fabergé commercial back in the '70s when I was growing up. You Farrah Fawcett, "You tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends,
Oh,
and they
yes.
tell 2 friends."
so,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember the
gotta
hair,
remember
yeah,
that.
I
yeah,
do remember
the
that
Farrah
commercial.
hair, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh, and then
So
she told 2 friends,
Mhm.
and then she told 2
she
friends,
tells
yes,
that's the premise,
exactly.
so come in and tell 2 friends, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful.
that is beautiful. You know
I have a
Please,
question. I'm sorry.
please.
What and, I know you guys are gonna, like, have really good answers to this, but I'm curious. I noticed that, women, like you said, middle age, are the seekers of this more so. Where are the men? Why do they not wanna be here,
That's a great
you
question.
suppose?
That's a great question, and I have to say, just to express this, gay men love me. Gay men love me. I really do think it's having a fear of the feminine, right? Because
Mhm.
we live in a culture, it's better now. We live in a culture where men do this and women do this. And, for a man to stand up and be vulnerable, right? I mean, I also think women, uh, they are the decision makers in the house, right? If the whole saying, "If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy." Well, I've had women that say, "Hey, I want my husband to work with us," and she brings the husband in. Men will come to me for readings one off, right? Like, and usually it's around topics like the finance and my investment and, those kinds of things. But I think we're changing that. I feel like we're turning a corner with that. What we're looking at now coming up energetically, this is a great time to be physically human because we're seeing something happen that has not ever happened. We're coming into, astrologically, all kind of things are happening intuitively, all kind of things psychically. We're coming into a feminine energy time. Not so much putting a female president, I don't mean that.
No.
I mean energetically, we're coming into, we need to put the swords down. We need to
Mhm.
Mhm.
back up and we need to get softer. Mama Earth, and that's why I created the guiding elements, earth, air, water, fire. What's the assessment? What element guides you? Mama Earth contributes to our wholeness, to our being. Fire, air, water. This is our makeup, you know? And turning back to nature and the elements and the feminine energy is really what's going to save this world.
God, I agree. It's the divine feminine. It's interesting. When I first started my practice as a solo entrepreneur, I kept getting men. I thought I was going to work with women, and all of these men kept coming. And I really think it was very purposeful for my own understanding of the
Mhm.
yin and the yang. I had it just deepened my compassion. And Ray, you can speak to this as a man. And again, I would say raised a child because he's only 16, but I have a son and 2 brothers, and I grew up in a hyper-masculine home. And yes, there is oppression of women, there's misogyny, but the other side of the coin is great oppression of men saying, "You can only be this. You can experience one emotion, anger. That's all.
Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
all." And what that does to a human soul, what that does to a human life, what that does to these broad, expansive, feeling, emotional beings that are told, "This is the lane you need to stay in, or you will be humiliated, ostracized, you will lose." And I love that it is coming to a fore, even politically, that we're seeing the hyper masculine versus the divine feminine.
Yep.
You know, it's an opportunity to pull back and say, who are we now and who are we becoming? So I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. But we have to take our lives into our own hands, literally. Like, we have to stand up
Mhm.
and say, "This is who I am. This is what matters to me. This is how I'm gonna show up and make change, affect change."
Mhm.
We need a movement, and
A
that's what I'm
movement.
trying to evolve. It is a movement to wake up and heal the collective.
Yes, and I feel so many people are heeding that in small and large ways, saying this has to change and it has to be a movement, a revolution, and
Yeah.
not in the violent sense, but in the sense of like, come on, this isn't
Well,
working and this will harm the earth and us.
absolutely, and I love that you use revolution because it is a revolution, but it's also, we need to have the revolution as an involution. It needs to go inside of us to deconstruct and reconstruct, and that's an involution, and then we can have an evolution. It
Ooh,
comes out into every aspect of our lives, right? So this revolution that we're fighting against everybody and their mother, right? We need to go inside. We need to
yes.
look at what's happening in here, involution.
Ooh,
And then,
that's good.
yeah, then we have the evolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow.
Well said.
So well said.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, because I could continue asking you question after question after question. Um, you work with creativity and intuition. Someone comes to you and they say, I feel like I don't know what my purpose is. What are some questions? Because you said that before as a coach, you're like, I may not have been able to provide the answers, but I had the questions. What are some questions that you ask?
Mhm. So, number one, who are you naturally? We begin the journey of looking at who you, so when you wake up first thing in the morning, who are you naturally? And not in a literal sense, like, we get up, we go to the bathroom, we turn the coffee on, we do, but what's your personality first thing in the morning? I used to take 5 a.m. calls on a bridge line back in the 90s to Australia. I was on, I was up, I could be, we do 5 a.m. here, and my husband's in a coma for the first 5 hours that he wakes up. I think it speaks to how we're naturally wired. So start with, who are you naturally, right? Then you can't even begin to understand purpose until you know what you value. So what do you value in your life? And if you don't know what you value in your life, look at what's showing up. What do you surround yourself with? You know, if you say you value simplicity, which I do, and you're surrounded with dramatic people and chaos, and which I am not, you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Mm.
So knowing that, and purpose isn't, in my opinion, purpose isn't necessarily a vocation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be my job,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you can go stack apples at the grocery store and still be living on purpose.
Yeah.
So purpose is taking who you are naturally, what you value, and what expands you and brings you joy. It could be
Mhm.
sitting in the middle of a forest sketching leaves on a tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where we get so confused is that it feels like it's like, well, I have to be able to make money to do this. I remember Joe Behar, this is really going to age me. She had a stand-up routine and she said, everyone says, do what you love and the money will follow. And she said, who's going to pay me for watching Donahue and going out to lunch with my girlfriends? Like, you know, that's what I love doing. And then she ends up on The View. Which is perfect
Mm.
because that's essentially what she's
Yeah,
doing, right?
yep,
And
yep.
she's, I'm sure, making a ton of money doing it. But I think that's really an important thing because we're like, how can I make money from what I love? And there's the trap because as a coach, I have lots of these conversations, and marrying the two can feel very, very thorny.
Well, you're onto something very big there because I would get detention. I would get expelled from school. I would get put behind the piano, separated from the class. I couldn't put because I talk too much. I get paid to talk.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
who are you naturally?
I love that.
Because there's purpose in that. You weren't
Yeah.
I didn't I you don't just show up.
Hope that teacher's watching right now.
Wait, Mrs. Bird, I'm sure she's way dead.
I thought that's funny. Yeah. God, that gets me going too because you think about kids and what they're naturally doing and how they're doing it and how it gets them in trouble. Yeah, I'm just thinking about my brothers
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
particular. Yeah.
And the other thing is I love this because if you're wondering who you are, and we do, midlife women wake up and we go, "Who the hell am I?" Right? Go back to who you were as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. Who were you then? Because you didn't wear a mask. And I teach this also in Japan, in Japanese culture, you take your shoes off before you go into someone's house. Right? It's common knowledge, it's courtesy, it's whatever. When you come into my world, I want your mask off. I don't want you to come in here wearing your mask. Here's my definition of me. And I don't want a mask. I want vulnerability. I want transparency. And I'm going to give that to you. But when you go back to who you were 8, 9, 10 years old, you didn't have a mask on.
Yeah.
You didn't know you needed a mask. So who were you at 8 years old? What kind of games were you playing? How were you having conversation? How did you interact? What were the dynamics? That's all wiring for your purpose.
Mm. So good. So good. So time goes by really, really quickly. We're asking all sorts of different questions. I want to hand it to you, Ray. If you have any question again, I'm putting you on the spot. But then I want to sort of segue into some final questions, but I don't want to, step on your toes, Ray.
No, 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 please, go right ahead. Actually, so many of my questions have been answered, and, I'm really enjoying this interview. So please go continue.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you have next.
Yeah. Well, again,
I mean that.
yeah, yeah, and so I wanna make sure that we're giving you room to share about anything that is top of mind that you want the audience to know about what you're doing, which we're already starting to do, but, you've got this really fascinating story. You understand how important it is to, uh, tune inward and to be fully connected to who you are naturally.
Mm.
We're on this earth school, you get to the end of your life. What will it have meant to have lived a meaningful life?
You know, I really think it's tied to my mission work of affecting change in the collective. Even if, I can say I put my work out in the universe on the internet, I did my work, and somebody watched me and they made a decision to change something that wasn't expanding them in their life,
Mm.
or it hurt them. You know, I already feel so blessed. I had women calling me from Turkey who had to go hide in their basement.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
we don't, we need equality and we need freedom for everybody. And I think that's at the end of my day with my last nap, I call it. I want to know that I contribute to letting someone feel free.
Oh, that's so good. That's
It
so
is.
good. How can people reach you? Where
Mhm.
do they find you? How do they learn more?
I like to say that I'm Googleable, and you can look me up, veronicadrake.com, and all of my stuff, my social media, everything is under veronicadrake.com.
Wonderful. Such a gift. I feel like I've learned so much and things I can already put into my life and into my work. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for the
Thank
generosity
you.
of your time and your presence.
Thank you for having me.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.